K-12 this year. So I'm going to give you a little bit of an insider's look at that. And then we're going to have a couple of our directors give you some information on some of the other mandates that exist in New Jersey and how in literacy and social studies they're really covered in our content. We're going to leave some time at the end for Q&A. We're going to define that time so we don't, we are very respectful of everybody's time. And if you have a follow-up question, I posted my email in the presentation, so that way you can, email me directly with anything else you may have. Anybody who's not in attendance, so if you have a friend or someone else that you know that couldn't attend, we are going to post the recording so they can view it. Our stance in regards to the health and PE curriculum has been to be proactive and transparent and very clear with the information we're providing you, and also focusing on the mindset of parent choice, the mandate and the statute that's related to health education in the state of New Jersey does allow for parental choice with any of the health concepts that are instructed. So when we put this presentation together, I really tried to frame this through the lens of, as a parent, what would I need to know, what would I need to see in order to make an informed decision. Unfortunately, there's a lot of misinformation that's swirling out there, and I believe the best way to get you the information is to do things like this, to give you the opportunity to get information that you can make an informed decision with, and also give you the opportunity to ask questions and vehicles for doing it. So those are kind of the goals of tonight. Thank you. So again, our goals are to give you transparent and accurate information. Unfortunately, there's a lot of misinformation out there, depending on what you're looking at, what you're hearing, who you're talking to. I think we need to hear this kind of stuff straight from the horse's mouth. So I appreciate you coming and engaging in that conversation with us tonight. And also to afford parental choice related to the topics and the content in our current health curriculum, and to let you actually see the resources that we'll be using, particularly at the K-5 level. Today, you all should have received an email and a phone blast pointing you to the website to take a look at a letter that Mrs. Walker has sent, which gives you the opportunity to view the various curricula, topical lists by grade level, and also a consent to instruct form that we're asking every parent to fill out. I'm going to get into that deeper into the program, but first I do want to start with this big idea because I think it's really important because it kind of lays the groundwork for how Middletown got where we are today. I'm a parent myself, so I have 2 middle school boys. They are going to be being exposed to these standards too, and I have the benefit of being an educator and a parent. So when I hear standards, I know exactly what that means. When I hear curriculum, I know what that means. And when I hear programming, I know where this all fits into the big picture. So I thought, let's start just out there because I think there's a lot of misinformation out there regarding what these things really mean. So if we take a look, we have our standards, which are the skill expectations by grade level for each student, and those are the things that are put out by the state, and those are what are adopted by the State Board of Education. From there, districts have the autonomy to write curriculum. Usually, in most districts, you can convene a team of educators that have a background in that area, and you pen a curriculum document that's aligned to those standards. In that process, every district has the autonomy to choose a program that fits their needs. So the state doesn't mandate a program, the state doesn't pass down a curricula. I know there's been a lot of discussion about the model curricula that's on the state. It's a model, it's not a mandate. We have taken none of that model in Middletown and applied it to our curricula, and there is no program that the state says you must use this. So I just wanted to define those things because I think this is where some of this information out there, mostly on social media, has come from. A little bit of this misunderstanding about what these things really mean and where we have some ability to make choices versus where we don't. Again, the NJDOE does not mandate a specific program or require a standard curriculum for also giving you accurate information to make the choice that best suits your children and your family values, needs, etc. So as I said, we have 2 new program adoptions for this year that our curriculum team and our Board of Ed have spent a lot of time vetting and looking at to make sure that they are achieving the goals that we collectively hold. We chose a resource, which I'm sure some of you who have already taken a look at the letter that was sent and clicked on some of those links, you'll see the Great Body Shop is the program that we adopted for our K-5 help, and Positive Action is our K-12 social emotional learning curriculum. Last night on our board agenda, there were our social emotional curricular documents were approved. We'll be putting them online for you to view in the next couple of days. So that is the program that will serve as the basis for that social emotional learning curriculum K-12. So I want to start with health because that is the kind of the elephant in the room, the thing that everybody wants to know more about and ask questions about, which I completely appreciate, and we're going to have time for that. But I do want to give you a little historical perspective on the timeline of these standards and our timeline here in Middletown and how this all how did we get here today, right? So these standards were adopted by the New Jersey Board of Education back on June 3rd, 2020, with the intention of being a 1-year out implementation. And then we all know that many things happen in the world that cause a lot of disruption, this being one of them. So the NJDOE said, look, we'll give you some grace time, and you no longer have to implement in the original timeline, but you do have to implement by the 2022-2023 school year, which is now. Which is why you're seeing a lot of discussion of this in other communities, here in Middletown, but because this is now the time where it has to happen. So we started this process really early, and in fact, rewrote our curriculum in that first year and actually adopted it late last year in May. So our K-5, 6 through 12, 6 through 8, and 9 through 12 were all adopted. However, we just adopted revisions last night, which will update programmatically our K-5, and we also took another critical look at the resources we were using 6 to 8. So grade 9 we adopted last night because we included Lifelines, which is a suicide prevention program. So all of those were re-adopted last night, but were originally written on the original timeline that the state had set forth. We are at the point where we have adopted, we are in compliance, and those curriculum documents are available for you in the links that were sent, and they'll also be posted on our website for you to view. So some of the way the standards are set up, and this is kind of just a snapshot overview of the 3 major themes that thread through the entire document K-12. And I think this is probably where a lot of concern, as a parent and myself, I was in that same I'm concerned kind of place, in that these 3 areas and the subheadings underneath appear in every single grade level. And whereas there is a progression of appropriateness that's linked to readiness of the student, it doesn't come across when you just look at the headings, right? You really have to dive in and look at the document from a horizontal perspective across the grade levels. And unfortunately, the document is not set up that way. So this kind of gives you a snapshot of the overarching topics that are covered in a manner that the state has deemed to be the time for children to be exposed. Now that's a matter that's up for debate, and that's why we believe that parental choice is so important. Here's the information, and you have to weigh those things based on your child's needs and your own personal collected information. So our health resource, which is K-5, the Great Body Shop, there's a couple of reasons why we selected this. First of all, when you look at it, it looks very kid-friendly. It is similar, if anybody remembers or has students that still bring home Scholastic magazines. They're like consumable pamphlets. They usually come once a month. There's like crossword puzzles on the back, there's articles. The kids tend to like them. supply of grade level materials that they will be able to give to students while they're engaging in that unit. At the end, kids can bring that home. There's a family connection piece on the back, and it speaks and looks like elementary, right? That was one of the major reasons. The other reason we thought this was a really strong resource is the fact that there's a family portal account feature which will set up once the school year starts, that you can actually log in and get some further information on each unit electronically. So we felt that the send home and the electronic family portal was a way to just increase that transparency and keep parents involved in that conversation all year long. You know, they hang their hat on the fact that they provide content that instructs and reinforces health knowledge with the intent of students making informed choices about their own health as they go. That's kind of the backbone of the philosophy within the program. If you can provide it, that's fine, it doesn't matter which one. So what we did, in order to give you the, what I believe is the most useful information, this is linked in the letter that got sent home today. There's a document like this that's created for every single one of our health grade level units. This is on first grade. We've labeled the unit title, and we've also used the program and our curriculum document to list out all of the topics that exist in each unit. So that way you know exactly what content is covered. We also, if you notice, unit 1 up at the top is hyperlinked. John, can you just click on that for me? It will bring you to the actual resource. So that way you can see what your children will be seeing when they engage in this content in the classroom. So listen, as a parent, I know that chances are I'm probably not going to look at the first aid unit or the safety unit. I'm going to hit the hot topics because I would want to have eyes on the materials that my kids are going to be using in the classroom. So we tried to make it as simple as possible so that way you could look at this list, look at the resource, and also look at the consent to instruct form and really have an easy time just navigating it and really having information that's very dialed in. So that exists for every single grade level, actually K-12. The resource piece, we're going to link for the middle school, the textbook that exists, but it doesn't come in a way that allows you to do something like this. But for our K-5 students, every single unit has a link that you can click on and look at, just like that. And eventually we'll have access to the family portal as well. Right, we can go back to the site. So we are going to be posting this presentation on the website too, which is why I put this in. I just want to kind of draw your attention to what it is, because I think it will be useful. There are different standards at every grade level where we've noticed there's more concern than others for obvious reasons. And so we pulled those standards out, and then we linked the lessons and the units at each grade level that exist in the Great Body Shop. So that way you can go right to the standard and you can look at the lessons that correspond with it. So these are just for certain areas that we felt probably were things that parents would want to view more than others. So this is at the end of grade 2. All of the standards are banded, which means that by the end of grade 2, a certain set of things has to be accomplished. By the end of grade 5, a certain set of things needs to be accomplished. So that's why up in the left-hand corner, you'll see it says at the end of grade 2. But when we post this on the website, you'll be able to actively click on any of those links, and it will bring you to the unit and also the resource, the snapshot of the resource that covers that content for that grade level. And you do that for grade 5 as well. So our consent to instruct. This statute right here, NJSA 1835 4.7, that gives us the ability to allow for parental choice and consent to instruct. If you take a look, I'm because of her conscience or sincerely held moral or religious beliefs shall be excused from that portion of the course. There is no penalty. And this has always existed, right? I remember back in the day when I was in middle school, 30 years ago, or probably more than 40 at this point. This was a thing. Right? The difference is that our consent to instruct ensures that every single parent has eyes on the material. And that was really important to us because we felt that transparency was crucial in order for people to feel well informed, because there was so much concern out there in regards to that content and the shift in some of these standards. So that gives us the ability to run the process that we are currently doing. So our consent to instruct process. So today you received that letter, which kind of gives you in a snapshot, verbal summary, what I discussed tonight, more so, really that really details. But it allows for us to give you the opportunity to select units that you are comfortable with your children sitting in classrooms for. And the ability to choose not to have your child sit in certain units where certain topics may occur. So that was sent home today. We are asking every parent in the district to submit that form. You can consent to it all at once. Like one child will yes to everything. Or you can consent to certain units based on that information that you have. We are asking that parents opt out of full units because we have to be able to manage this. And the way that the program is run and the way that our 6 through 12 operates is connected concepts exist within the same unit. And we really went through these documents to ensure that even in our upper grades, they were bundled in a way where kids, weren't going to be missing significant lengths of time in the health classroom. We wanted those things that we felt people may not want their children to engage with were bundled together so that way they were out for a very short period of time and then able to go back in the classroom when the next topical area hit. But we are asking that full units be opted out. And you'll have the ability to do that all on the form that was linked to the grade level today on the web. I'll get going to talk about that. Yep. One item of note, if you have a 10th grader, 10th grade is not health traditional, 10th grade is driver safety. So there's no ability to opt out. It's kind of like the PE side of things where there's no ability to sign your child, out of the content. And so therefore the whole 10th grade curricula is driver safety. There was no reason to run a form for it. So if you have a 10th grader, it doesn't mean that they're not getting help, but driver safety is the 10th grade health requirement. So what are kids going to be doing when they're not in the classroom or exposed to that content? We are going to give them an alternate health assignment outside of the content that exists for that lesson. So we're going to take a look at, and it's pretty patterned at this point where people are choosing to not participate. So I think we'll be able to manage it effectively in the sense of, look, if we have a group of students that is not participating in Unit 6 and they were able to participate in Unit 1, then we will do something for them that hits upon those topics again in Unit 1. Some type of extension activity, some type of application activity that our health teachers will be working on creating when we come back to school next week. The management of it is probably going to look differently in every building based on volume of people participating versus not, and also based on coverages in the building, size of building, space available, and your building principal and your health teachers will be communicating those pieces to you as we move into the school year. But we do have a plan to continue to deliver health content in some way. And I'm going to give everybody the opportunity at the end to ask questions about health. So I just want to move through the social emotional learning piece so that way you get a kind of sneak peek of this as well. So our social emotional learning program, Positive Action, is actually a K-12 program, and it was one of the major reasons why we selected it. There aren't many social emotional curricula proper out there right now, and there are even fewer K-12. This one was a K-12 program things about themselves, so they learn how to be responsible decision makers and responsible for their own actions, words, etc. And it really centers on this, if you look in the bottom right-hand corner, this thoughts, actions, feelings cycle. And it's really rooted in cognitive behavioral theory, where we're trying to recognize and change thinking patterns. So it really dovetails very nicely with all that we're doing with mental health and wellness in the district. And so we felt this was a different angle and an important angle than our traditional character education programs, which really work on the pillars of character, where this takes a more cognitive approach to coaching kids to have positive thoughts, positive self-talk, which can lead them to feeling good about themselves, which leads them to engage in positive actions in a lot of different areas. It is aligned to the social emotional competencies in New Jersey. There are a set of social emotional competencies. So when you take a look at those curriculum documents, you will see these major competencies running throughout the document in every grade level. Self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, responsible decision-making, and relationship skills. So they're all things that are really important, but it is a very reflective program, and we're really excited to put this in, because quite frankly, we're probably one of the few districts at this point that have something like this. So we're really proud of it, and we're really excited for it to roll out in September. A little bit more about the mission of the program, the philosophy, which I just touched upon, and that thoughts, feelings, actions cycle. When and who will deliver this program? That's a question that I'm sure if you don't have now, eventually you would. Because there is a huge mental health focus to this program, which as we said is different than the character ed programs that probably many places utilize, which are great, but this is a different angle. We really believe that it was important that our mental health professionals in the building were the ones facilitating this program. So we have at every level a different group of mental health professionals that will be participating in the delivery of this program in conjunction with classroom teachers, who will be not delivering, but listening and absorbing the vernacular that comes with the programming. At our K-5 level, our social behavioral support specialists will deliver lessons during our win time, which is flex time in the day. And our social behavioral support specialists, they need to either have a school psychology or a school social worker degree. So they are certified in mental health in some capacity. We've just named them differently here in Middletown. And we use them more as a global support versus a special services support necessarily. At our middle school level, we have our guidance counselors, our school social workers, and our school psychologists that will deliver these lessons. They are going to be working with the community teams at each middle school to embed times within their schedules where they can come in and work with the students on these lessons. The lessons are short. They're 15 minutes or less. And we have vetted out, lessons that will happen during the course of the year, and that is also in the curriculum document, so you can take a look at those topics that are going to be covered during each of those themes, those competencies, and also in each grade level. At our high school level, a little bit different. Certainly, we have our same team of mental health professionals that exist at middle school. We have a class at the high school level called the 9th grade seminar. And when we took a look at that class and all of the features of this program, it really was a lot of the same thematic things that are occurring in that 9th grade seminar. So we are going to merge that into the 9th grade seminar experience, where the mental health professional will come in and work with the 9th grade seminar teacher to deliver those lessons, over the course of the time that the students in that class at the high school level. And then we'll also be using some of the lessons in the 11th and 12th grade health classes where they fit. There are some nice fits there and some commonalities. And again, the mental health professional would be going in and working with the health teacher. We also are going to use a lot of these lessons for restorative practices. There are so many lessons that exist at every grade level in this program that we couldn't possibly use them all. We picked ones that we felt we were absolutely wanted to deliver group of lessons that we have kind of at our ready in order to use in small social skills groups, in restorative practice venues where a student may have made a poor choice, to get them to reflect and to reevaluate their decision making using the vernacular that exists within this program. So lots and lots of opportunity here for uses across, the K-12 spectrum. So I wanted to just kind of go back to, before I bring up two of our directors, to kind of just hit on some of the other mandates that exist. I wanted you to see, first and foremost, the comprehensive health and PE statutes. These are all the things that we are legally obligated to cover in our health curricula across the K-12 spectrum. Some of them are tagged with grade levels, others are not. They give a little more flexibility in where they can exist. But as you can see, it is quite a list. That is required. So when you access the curriculum documents, you'll see these areas in those documents based on grade level. So there are some other universal statutes, that's how they refer to them, that exist in K-12 education. And I've listed the major ones here for you to see. A lot of these threads run through our literacy and social studies programs, which is why I'm going to have our two directors of literacy and social studies come up and just give you kind of an overview of how we provide for these statutes to exist in our curriculum. So I'm going to bring up Cindy Van Blon, who is our director of literacy K-12, and James Rasmussen, who is our social studies and technology director of K-12. Good evening.
Good.
I just want to say good evening, everyone. Happy to see you all here.
Thank you for coming out. I'm here as also a parent too, so I can kind of kill two birds with one stone. My son is a 7th grader at Bayshore, and my daughter's going in the 3rd grade in New York. I obviously live in the district. Some of the new mandates, I'll speak about the history department, they've already been done if you're really studying history in an honest and comprehensive manner. One of the ones is the homicide law, which simply says, and there's a lot of educational speak behind these mandates, but it pretty much just says that you have to talk about African American contributions and Black contributions to history. I've taught history for 15 years prior to being assistant principal here, and then the director of social studies and technology, and that's always been done in history classrooms. You'd be doing an extreme disservice if you didn't include this. So this is just, it's a mandate, it's been adopted, but our curriculum had already touched on contributions to the civil rights movement, and prior to that, with slavery and things like that in America. The diversity and inclusion law, it simply says that we have to be inclusive in our practices, in the study of history, and with the assessments we use to look at these types of issues that have become, for better or worse, politicized in America. The Holocaust law, again, extreme disservice if you don't speak about genocides that happened prior to the Holocaust, genocides that continue today in places like Darfur, and the major event that happened in the 1930s and 40s in Europe with the Holocaust. So we had already done this, and I would be appalled if my student, my son and daughter, weren't learning about this. And the other law is the LGBT and persons with disability law. This simply says that our history curriculums are going to be comprehensive and represent different perspectives from the American experience that ultimately weave the fabric of our society and become inclusive. So we would discuss Harvey Milk, who was the first openly gay politician. We would discuss the contributions to astrophysics with Stephen Hawking, who was disabled. So we adopt a inquiry-based, student-centered perspective, where students are presented information. It's not just dates and dead people. They're presented information, they critically analyze that information, and come to their own conclusions about the direction of how the American experiment is going to roll out. And that's what these standards and laws are intended to inspire our students.
So just to piggyback and interweave into what Mr. Rasmussen said, with literacy, what we do is we take the approach of student voice We look at all of the different things across the curriculum that would provide students with perspectives into all different types of diversity, into their own lives, because what we want our kids to do when they leave Middletown is to be able to take that voice and their perspectives and be able to have a conversation with anybody about anything and be comfortable in their own skin, bring their own values, and we build upon that as the days move. We do use the units of study as a tool in our curriculum. We use that in our K through 8, and then in our high schools, we have implemented book clubs and independent reading, and we still have core novels that we use the canon choices that many of you have probably read, through your college careers and high school careers. We haven't abandoned any of those, but we use them purposefully and to help kids build upon what they know so that, again, they can develop perspectives across different genres and be able to express themselves, be able to listen, be able to speak. In high school, you can walk into several classrooms that are having Socratic seminars. They're discussing the perspectives of books, and they're bringing what they bring from home into those discussions to deepen who they are and to be able to, again, go back to it. I know I remember talking to a parent last year, and they said, for me, I think the biggest takeaway is allowing kids to be able to see themselves in the books that they have the opportunities to read throughout our curriculum and the choices they have, but then to also see others so that they're developing into empathetic global citizens, and that's really what we want our kids to do as they leave Middletown. And through even these types of statutes that we have to implement into our curriculum, we're providing that critical lens for kids to be able to analyze, to evaluate, and to, pull apart what it's saying, and then be able to walk away with a little bit more than they walked into it so that they can, again, have a logical conversation beyond the walls we have here.
Thank you, Heather. And I think it's important is that idea of representation, right? So that is like the hallmark of what we do here in Middletown, is that the resources we embed in our curricula provide representation, and when we deliver information is from a neutral perspective, right? Without inflicting position one way or another, or personal values, and that's a really important piece. So when we look at resources, we look for that full perspective and representation, but we also coach our teachers to a place where they are to be neutral, right?